Hey, what's up, everybody from Elevate? So Kevin just sent me a text. He was asking how to train all the time and kind of train around nagging injuries, or how you can set up your training schedule so your body doesn't get, broken down over time. And recently I've had a couple people at the gym come to me and say they wanted to kind of start getting more serious about their training. They wanted to pursue some goals that were a little bit further out in the future, and they just wanted a roadmap or how to go from where they were at today to where they're at in the future. And so those questions kind of overlap with each other, right? How do you set up training over time so you can train a lot and progress quickly? And then also, how can you increase the amount of training you're doing? How can you consistently focus on improvement? So if you think about it, there's the volume of your training, which I would put as like the time spent training total. And then there's the intensity of your training. So intensity is really hard to measure accurately. I always think of intensity as on a 1 to 10 scale. And basically a 10 is the hardest session you've ever been through personally. And so that 10 can keep increasing as you go through your career. But, a 10 is that true max effort performance. It should wipe you out for a few days. So everything kind of adjusts from there. And then, volume, I always look at just in the total time of actually working out. So I don't consider that like I got to the gym at 6:30, I got on the mats at 6:45, I did rounds until 8, and then I sat there and stretched my hamstrings, but not really, just kind of sat on the mat for an extra 20 minutes. So I trained for 2 hours. No, it's like the actual amount of training time you're doing. So what you're always looking to do is increase volume or increase intensity. So if you're limited in the total amount of volume you can train, like let's say you can only get 5 hours a week on the mat, then you might want to keep turning the intensity up. So just look at each session a way to make the session a little bit more intense, whether you choose more difficult training partners, whether you roll a little bit harder, whether you put greater and greater challenges on yourself. So if you consider a 3-minute round, if your goal is to submit your partner once every minute, that's a very different level of intensity than if you're just trying to relax and flow and not let yourself get out of breath. So that different levels of intensity go with that different kind of training. In terms of volume, it's just adding more sessions. For most athletes, what I kind of recommend is decreasing the intensity at first. So rather than making every practice or every session a life or death session, trying to first build volume. So learning how to stay relaxed and loose, and then training as much as you can. Then once you build that volume, you can pick certain sessions to increase the intensity and slowly start ramping up the intensity. So you might have a 2-a-day on Monday. So Monday morning we work out, let's say a 5 out of 10 intensity for an hour and a half. Monday night you work out 5 out of 10 intensity for an hour and a half. Tuesday morning we go 3 out of 10 intensity for an hour. And then Tuesday night we go 8 out of 10 intensity or 9 out of 10 intensity for 2 hours. And then you get Wednesday morning off, so you increase that recovery window. So you're starting to slowly learn how to load, and then you just start looking at your body and sensing its recovery. So you have to look at your mood, you have to look at your rate of progress, you have to look at everything. And there's athletes that are all over the spectrum. Certain athletes do way better with less volume, greater intensity. Certain athletes do way better with a ton of volume and they never worry about intensity. And so you have to go back and forth. Every athlete's going to have their own style that works for them, and you have to experiment with that. And then you also want to do kind of blocks of training where you look at emphasizing one or the other. So you might do a block of training where you're just trying to spend as much time training as possible, trying to get that 20, 30 hour week on the mats. And then other times you're going to try to get everything set up so it's only, hard intensity sessions. So maybe you're doing 60 to 90 minutes a day, but trying to max out your intensity so that your recovery stays consistent, but you're really pushing. Or in the case of a fight camp, you might go into a place where you overreach intentionally. So maybe 4 weeks out from the fight, for that next 2 weeks, you are going to overtax your recovery so that you provide an extra training stimulus. So then when you take your foot off the gas volume-wise for the last 2 weeks of camp, that recovery can boost back up and your intensity is good. So a bunch of different strategies, play around with it, try it out, enjoy.